New polling shows Donald Trump leading President Biden in 5 of 6 battleground states, including Arizona. The New York Times, Siena College, and Philadelphia Inquirer poll shows that gains among young, black, and Hispanic voters are among the reasons for Trump's strong showing. And joining us now to talk about this latest polling is Chuck Coughlin, President and CEO of High Ground. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Great being here, Ted.
What do you make of all this?
Well, I mean, it's important to understand who they talk to. They talk to registered voters. And my first criticism of all polls is 25% of registered voters don't participate in a cycle. So, and then you talk to known voters. Well, what does that mean? You really want to talk to voters. So it's going to be a super close election. We know this. And so anytime a poll gets a little something wrong, it's going to go more than a little wrong.
So in polling, you got your registered voters.
Yep.
You've got your likely voters.
Yep.
But what really counts are the voters.
Yeah, that's who we call. That's
Yeah.
At High Ground. We have a profile of what's going to turn out in a cycle. We believe, this is a forecast, that it'll be like this cycle, 36% Republican, 32% Democrat, and 28% other. So we fill quotas that way, but we call people who are 2 out of 3, that we know that they voted in the past.
For this poll, though, similar results to last November.
Yes.
And since then, the stock market's gone up 25%. Donald Trump is on a criminal trial for salacious stuff that you can't imagine a president, former, current, future, whatever, being involved in. What's going on?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of anxiety about Gaza, right? There's a lot of stress about that. But let's think about this. I mean, we do know this in communication, that negative messaging always resounds or resonates more strongly with the electorate than positive messaging. And so that negative disposition infects an electorate because that's what's being talked about all the time. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is, how do those undecided voters, how do those people that are persuadable one way or the other fall? I've never seen any poll to date with Donald Trump over 50% of the electorate. I've not seen that. And so it's an important thing to watch. But my impression is that the negative nature of the narrative right now, so forecast forward then, maybe you get a rate cut. Maybe you get the war in Gaza to be over with. Maybe you get some other beneficial news in the cycle that comes along that the president can claim credit for. But we don't know that. We don't know that.
Right. And this, obviously, polls are snapshots. We know
Absolutely,
that it's
snapshot
happening.
in time.
Okay, with that in mind, though, the simple desire for change, it seems like that was a factor in these numbers.
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes the matchup. I mean, let's be clear about that, too. Nobody likes the rematch of these two guys going at it again, both aged men. There's nobody that's captured. You know, I'm reading Doris Kearns Goodwin's book right now about the '60s and the LBJ's campaign and the Kennedy, end of the Kennedy, beginning of Bobby Kennedy's campaign. I mean, they used to pack a ballroom with all these people that were so excited right out of college. That kind of enthusiasm is not captured in the electorate today. It just doesn't really exist right now because there's nobody in the narrative of the cycle talking aspirationally about what the country is that they want to have.
What do you make of the fact that Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Sun Belt states, as opposed to what Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, more Great Lakes kind of region, the Sun Belt states, the margin was wider.
Right.
What do you make of that?
I make of that we have larger percentages of undecided voters, I think, in the Sun Belt states. You have people moving out here. These are dynamic states. These are dynamic states where the electorate is consistently changing, whereas in the other states, they're more static. You know, Pennsylvania, Michigan, those states are more electorally static. And it's more of we know this homogeneous population that's going to turn out and vote.
With that in mind, do we expect to see more of President Biden and his supporters out here because of that gap and less of them in the Great Lakes region?
Oh, certainly. I would think that's going to be true. They're going to be up there as well. But you're going to see a lot of the Biden campaign out here and in Nevada, and all the union votes in Nevada that are around Clark County and Vegas with all of those supportive networks of people. And let's remember this, none of that is engaged yet. None of that is fully engaged in a get out the vote turnout campaign, which I anticipate is going to be a very aggressive effort. We've seen this discrepancy in fundraising, and that the Biden campaign is enjoying substantial margins over the Trump campaign right now. How that money gets deployed in terms of turnout efforts, I think will make a difference as well.
What does this say about the U.S. Senate race in Arizona, where Trump has this margin, and as questionable as it is, it's still a margin, it's still there, and it seems somewhat consistent, and Kari Lake doesn't?
Right. I saw George Califf's polls the other day, Data Orbital, very conservative firm here in town. I think he had Gallego up maybe 6 or 8 points. I believe George's poll. I looked at, and that's a live voter ID call.
Yeah.
That's who he's talking to. His demographics were similar to what I just talked about. And he had Rubin up by a bit. I think that's a factor of two things. One, Lake has been on in front of us now for nearly 2 years in terms of in front of the electorate, and so she has a profile that people expect and know. Rubin's like from the smallest congressional district in the state. He's just begun narrating a campaign. Most people don't know who Rubin Gallego is until they're seeing him now on these television ads that he's spending upwards of $20 million on to frame his narrative. So you have a known narrative and an unknown narrative. I don't think Kari's done a good job of cultivating that narrative with her backwards-looking rhetoric on the election denialism, the full embrace of the initial on the constitutional issue of abortion and saying this is a great law, and then saying, oh, we need to get rid of this law. She hasn't had the best several months in front of the Arizona electorate.
Last question. With these polls, and again, they could flip a little bit. They could certainly get tighter in some way, shape, or form. But does that mean that once the election happens, and if Trump or if Republicans, certain MAGA candidates lose, we're going to get this election denialism all over? Because look at the poll. They did it last time. Look at the polls. The polls said this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Are we going to go through this again?
Well, let's all remember one thing. This is my old campaign coming out. The only poll that counts is the one on Election Day. And of course you're going to get that. He's predicted that right now. He's predicted that he's not going to die. We saw Tim Scott, who's one of the people auditioning for him for his vice president, saying that he on the news the other day that he wouldn't accept the outcome, not necessarily accept the outcome. So yeah, you've got this infection going on the Republican side of the party right now, questioning all the mechanisms under which we vote, despite the legal record, which shows
Nothing.
failures. Nothing. It shows 0. So it's completely speculative. But yeah, I fear that that's exactly what we're going to find in this upcoming November.
Interesting stuff. Chuck Coughlin, again, High Ground. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.